Hey, hey, we're back. Hey, it's been a long time since I've done an interview. Holy cow, I hope I haven't forgotten how to do this. Hope everybody had a great Christmas and New Year, holiday, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you guys do, Festivus. I hope you had a great one. And I'm glad to be back in the interview seat doing my thing. And I'm also pretty excited that the Steve Hostetter episode is out today. That was released at midnight. So that one's out. You can listen to it. It's a really good one. And we got into um, having causes and not worrying about losing fans. Talked about some of the projects he's working on, his book, Ginger Kid, that's available on Amazon. Lots of good stuff. I'll post some more about that, but it's a really good interview. I'm really stoked. We also have sponsors. Holy cow. I've got some sponsors. The first one is the Pop Culture Show, and that's hosted by Steve Barnes and has Leslie Frem and Cubby Bryant. Now, all these folks have radio experience, so they sound like radio people and they sound really good. So it's a good podcast to listen to because you don't hear all the ums that I do. But Barnes is a TV and film actor and producer, and they get together, they talk about the news, they talk about their lives, they talk about pop culture, they talk about TV shows, and then they have guests. They have guests like Jewel. They've had Dr. Oz on, and the wrestler Goldberg. They've had him on. So they don't have guests all the time, but they have guests quite often, and it's pretty entertaining. It's one of those independent podcasts that I always talk about that people should watch. So I'm pretty stoked about that. And if you want to check them out, I'm going to pop them right into the chat so you can go right there after we do the interview. So that's cool. That's a good one. And I've also got another sponsor. It's been a big day for sponsors today. Podcorn. So this is what Podcorn's all about. If you're a podcaster, first off, you can't get sponsors unless you get like 10,000 downloads every episode. And that is like the top 1% of podcasters. And if you're an advertiser, you have to spend a lot of money to advertise with those podcasters. So what Podcorn does is it matches podcasters to advertisers, and the podcasters can have any amount of downloads. You can have anywhere from 1 to 30,000, and the advertisers can have any budget they want. So you name your price, you do a pitch to the advertiser. If you're an advertiser, you listen to the pitches and you get matched up. So it's super easy. I set up an account a while back, but didn't do much with it. I did 2 pitches yesterday, and I've got Podcorn as a sponsor and the Pulp Culture Show as a sponsor for a month here. So it's pretty exciting to have that going on. And so check them both out. Podcorn and the Pulp Culture Show. Yeah, pretty neat. So that's enough with sponsors, though. So today I've got a writer for nationally syndicated Bob and Tom Show. He was a finalist in Trial by Laughter, and he's got a new album coming out on this is January, isn't it? January 22nd. And he's also got a civil engineering degree, so he's smart. I've got Joe Bates here with me. Joe, how you doing?
Oh, hello. I'm doing all right, man. I can't complain. Life is ever changing, but somehow not at the same
Yeah,
time.
no doubt. It's
Uh,
it's it's different.
yeah,
It's very different.
but it's pretty good. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah,
Appreciate it, Scott.
I'm stoked to talk to you. You were actually introduced to me by Gabe Kia, who was he was just on the show, and is his episode hasn't come out yet. But
Yeah, he's a super nice guy. We talk hockey when we hang out. He knows way more than I do.
uh,
So
I'm having a couple technical difficulties here, so just a sec.
Am I too pale? Is that the issue? I might be
No,
too
you're
pale.
good. You're good. It's um my card that I do my uh, recording on is something's wrong with it. So, I didn't mean to hit that. Oh,
That's pretty funny.
well, I can't find my other card, so I got that card, and where's my green one? This is nuts.
Folks, at this part of the show, we really like to thank our sponsors, Podcorn and
Thank
Pop
you.
Culture Podcast.
Oh man, I just got them today. I'm not going to send them any tape on this. Holy cow. Okay. Well, here's what we're going to do. We're just going to stay live because that's recording, and I'll have a good recording from that. So this will be easy. So
All right.
the cool thing that I like to do to start out is just pretend like I'm Entertainment Tonight, and I'm going to ask you all the stupid questions that they ask. So I know you're in Indy now. Are you originally from Indy?
No, I'm not. I was born in West Virginia a long, long time ago. Moved like 14 times
Uh-huh.
in my life. Started stand-up comedy in Houston,
Okay.
Texas, about 9 years ago. Was in San Jose for a couple, Chicago for less than a
Uh-huh.
year. Now Indianapolis for what seems to be
Yeah.
forever.
I actually lived in Indy for a couple of years, but we talked about that. That was in the 80s, the mid 80s. And Bob and Tom, they were not syndicated yet, but they were big in Indy. And I listen to them every morning. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I honestly, when I first moved here, I didn't expect much of the city because I never heard anything about it. You know, you never meet really anybody from Indianapolis, and then I really fell in love with the city. It's
Yeah.
great. I'm going to be moving soon because I my love is fleeting, but I hopefully going to New York later this year.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that'll be
Cool.
nice. Yep.
That's I know people there too, so that's neat. So when did you start doing stand up?
About I guess 9.5 years ago, my 10-year anniversary is going to be this summer.
Oh, cool.
But I was 25 when I started. Technically, I did do stand up when I was 18
Uh,
at the Laugh Stop in River Oaks in Houston, Texas. But which is funny because you had the sound effect I played earlier. In the middle of my set, somebody did make that sound effect with the sad trombone, and I was like, I don't want to do this ever
uh,
again. So it was 7 years until I got
yeah.
back into it.
It's funny. Sometimes I've talked to a lot of folks that they went up really young and they were just mortified by it. They had like PTSD, so they couldn't go back. They couldn't even go to a comedy club. But
It's yeah. I mean, I was wearing shorts. I had like spiky gelled hair. I was wearing like a short sleeve button
uh,
down. I don't know who I was back then. I was a virgin. That's the
yeah.
one thing I know. But everything else,
Oh, that's funny. So when you started back at 25, was there some sort of did you have a goal? Were you really digging comedy, or did you just do another open mic just for the hell of it?
my work. I was working in Houston, and my work sent me to San Antonio, and I was at a hotel just by myself. And there's a comedy club next door. They had an open mic. I was like, you know what? Why not?
Uh-huh.
So I go in, and I'm like last on the sign up sheet, and I sit there for 3 to 4 hours. And when I had done it before, I'd like watch Last Comic Standing. It looked like anybody could do it. I did the open mic that I bombed at where everybody killed but me,
Uh-huh.
which was like the Laugh Stop was like a really just kind of a unique, perfect place at the time. But I went and did it, and I just watched everybody bomb, and I was like, "Oh, you just are bad."
Yeah.
I didn't know you could be bad, and then when I saw you could be bad, I was like, "Okay, I love doing this." And then as I did it for like 6 months, I was like, okay, well, what's the next step with doing this? What do you? And then I just started looking at that, and again, I still don't really know how to take steps or where to go, but I just keep doing it, and I really have still been enjoying being on stage at this moment. So once that goes away,
Yeah.
then I'll go to my second job as an engineer.
Yeah. You know, it's funny when you finally realize that open mics are just supposed to be bad, then everything's better. And then you get worried about the showcases and you find out they're supposed to be pretty bad too. And and then, and then
Yeah,
when
it really is that. Like, I was so focused and everything was so important. Like, it was so fun, and then everything got too important.
yeah,
And then it wasn't that fun
yeah,
anymore. And then when you figure out that's not important, then it gets fun again. And it just keeps kind of going back and forth
yeah, no
between
doubt.
those two feelings.
So, tell me who your influences were. Why, obviously, people who want to get into comedy watch comedy, and that's how they get into it. Who were your influences?
The first stand-up album I ever listened to was Button Down Concert uh, with Bob
Yeah.
Newhart, and I still think it's like the best stand-up album ever made.
Uh,
Like, it's so perfect. But it was a lot of old school stand-up, like Steve Martin. My dad
mm.
loved Jackie Vernon, so I was listening
Oh
to
yeah,
Jackie Vernon at like a young age and everything. And when I had started, everyone had kind of seen it was more like I was trying to be like an old style stand-up. But I think like if you see my act now, Steve Martin probably heavily influences the most because I have a
yeah.
very like absurd cockiness to
Uh-huh.
everything that I do on stage,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah. I
that really
love
comes from that.
the the power uh the power thing.
Oh, the power moves.
Yeah, power moves. That's great.
Yeah, I like character work a lot too. So, which a lot of people don't realize is like when there were a lot of character work stand-ups like
Yeah,
early on. A lot of people are like, oh, that's different. It's like no, it's just
yeah,
kind of reverting back to what it used to be.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's that was really cool. And were you really wearing your roommate's suit?
No, no,
Okay.
I'm doing very well for myself. Uh,
You don't have to do the bit. It's okay.
this is real life, baby. But no, yeah, it's just it's a funny. I like characters that get their comeuppance.
Yeah, yeah,
Kind
yeah.
of like everyone's like, oh, finally, this jerk finally got it. So,
That's cool. One of the things I like to ask everybody, just because I read a lot and I listen to a lot of podcasts and stuff like that. Are you engaging in any reading, podcasts, magazines, music, anything that's really speaking to you and inspiring you?
it's tough to get inspiration from other mediums for me because lately I feel like the last couple of years it's usually something I'm frustrated over that
Mm,
I'm finding comedy in what I'm writing for. Usually everything else is to get my mind off of all of it. Just been playing so much video games during COVID and everything, which has been nice and relaxing because I just did the album and it's kind of nice to kind of veg out
mm,
afterwards
yeah.
because you focus so much on that. And so I've been playing like kind of old school. This sounds so stupid. Like old school, like Japanese style RPGs
Oh,
on
okay.
PlayStation, like PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, classic games. I don't read unless there's a lot of pictures and superheroes.
Okay.
So I'm not good at that. And podcasts, I mean, all the podcasts I listen to are either about comic books or it's like sports and gambling related.
Uh,
Both I'm not doing very well at.
okay. So basically, you're a dork. You're a typical comedian. So that's
I'm a
cool.
typical comedian under just a beautiful face. It
Yeah.
really,
Hey, I want to pop up your album cover real quick here.
oh, perfect. Thank you.
So we got that coming out the 22nd. Is there any pre-order for that or anything going on?
That actually is the pre-sale link is gonna be up Friday,
Friday. Okay, cool.
January 8th. So yeah, I was just talking. I did it with On Tour Records, who are super awesome to work
Hmm.
with and very nice. So yeah, they just sent me a text early yesterday that it's gonna come out. The pre-sale link will be the 8th, Friday.
Okay. Cool. I'll
Hmm.
get into the album a little bit later. Let's talk about you being an engineer and getting into comedy.
Okay.
I deal with a lot of engineers because I'm in the
Oh,
IT business,
oh,
and
okay.
these engineers are like the furthest thing from being a comedian of anybody in the world. I mean, they're engineers in general are so, you know what engineering takes. It takes extreme focus on what you're doing, and you take that home with you. It becomes your personality, and it's just that extreme focus. You can't be anything else, and then you become a comic out of that. So let's talk about you being an engineer. Obviously, that's what you went to school with, and you did that. And
Yeah.
so, what are you still doing the engineering?
A form of it,
Okay.
sort of. I was a civil engineer. I worked with like traffic and highway. Not, I didn't really design roads, but just
Mhm.
everything about the roadways and traffic that isn't designing the roads, like speed limits, stop signs, putting like stoplights, trying to figure out the wiring, all that. That's what I
Mhm.
was doing. I'm a licensed professional engineer. I've got a little, which has done nothing for me. I can
Yeah.
stamp things and get people killed and go to jail for it. Um, but I'm not like my old manager would tell you, like, I'm not an engineer. I don't have that focus. When I first started working in civil engineering, I would see the people who are like, okay, that guy is where I'll be in 5 years. That guy's where I'll be in 10 years,
Yeah.
20 years. And he is in a cubicle next to me. And it's like, what am I doing? Like
Yeah.
it was just a miserable feeling to feel like I'm going to be in this building the rest of my life. So luckily, 4 years later, I got into stand up, and that's kind of filled that void
Uh-huh.
of like an outlet of doing something. Because I'm not, I don't have that drive that some people do for like a day job and working your way up, and
Yeah.
it all. Now this it sounds very millennial of me, but it all seems kind of pointless.
Yeah.
Like because I put a report together and it was a speed limit and we sent it to the city right outside of Houston. We said the speed limit's going to be 50 miles per hour, and they're like, "Are you sure? Because people are going pretty fast. Could you make it 55?" And we wrote back, "Yeah, we'll make it 55 miles per hour. That's fine. It's not a big deal." And then they wrote back, "Well, the board is telling me that we should make it 50 for safety reasons. So can we go back to 50?" And we're like, "Sure." And I was like, it doesn't matter. Like I had to go out there for 8 hours a day with a speed gun and like take tallies of every speed and then take the 85th
Yeah.
percentile of all this stuff. And
Uh-huh.
I slept through most of it and just made it up. So
Yeah.
it really is whatever they want it to be. I don't really care. But now I do more like Microsoft. I'm a cost engineer now, so I'm just
Okay.
basically doing finances and budgets for different companies, which is I like it. I like that a lot more because at least
Mhm.
money makes more sense to me than the
Yeah.
speed limits.
So let's go back to your start when you did that open mic. So obviously something must have clicked for you there and you went on to keep on doing it. What was it like getting from that open mic to like your first paying gig? What took you there?
I mean, just laziness to not quit.
Uh-huh.
I mean, honestly, like it was like I had nothing else to do, so I'll just keep doing this because I didn't. I mean, I just started drinking at like 25. I didn't really drink until then.
Uh-huh.
Um, and this girl broke up with me, so I had no other outlet and everything. So I was like,
Mhm.
I'll just focus on this. But man, it's tough because me and my buddy Kevin Farron, and we had a friend Dusty Rhodes who helped us out, but we put together a showcase, like independent show, which wasn't being done at the time in Houston.
Mhm.
And we were just like, well, no one's booking us, so we'll just do our own thing. We sold out the venue, like 200 something people there, of all our friends and family. We all had very good sets. We all thought that's the way comedy was going to be for the rest of our lives, not understanding like the friends and family factor and how that influences it. And it wasn't probably like I didn't work at a club mainly because I moved like a year in to San
Uh-huh.
Jose. I was in the Bay Area for 2 years, got nothing there. It was a bad time personally for me. Moved out to Chicago, then Indianapolis, and I got my first paying gig at Wiley's Comedy Club in Dayton,
Oh,
Ohio, as a host, like 4 years into stand-up. I was for
uh,
Miss Pat.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember Miss Pat. Yeah.
yeah. She is super funny. She acted. She was telling all the Dayton comics, and I feel like I'm a good host. I feel like I can do a good host, and I feel like I was a good host early on because I had been doing stand-up for a certain amount of time
Uh,
before I actually got to an MC work. So
right.
I had at least like I was aware of what was going on. She told the Dayton comics like, "This host, this is what you have to watch. This is a good host. You know, he's confident, and that's all you need to be." And I said, "What about my?" I go, "What about my jokes?" She's like, "I don't give a fuck about your jokes." I was like, "Okay, I don't know what to tell you there."
There's
But
something to be said for being able just to stand up there
yeah.
and be looked at. Yeah.
But that whole span of 4 years, I mean, my life really wasn't California. Like I got laid off from my job. I got like a DUI. Like I just had a lot of things go wrong, and I was
Hmm.
very depressed. But I still didn't want to stop doing stand up even during all that stuff. So
Hmm.
I just kept at it. I know that I like being on stage. I know that I it's tough because you see other open micers who are open micers their whole lives. Like, I know I'm funny, you know. It's always a thing you have to say that, but I'm like, I'm aware that something I'm doing is right. I just
Uh-huh.
don't know the delivery of it yet.
Right.
So I kept changing constantly, kept writing and kept adjusting until honestly it was the power move bit that ended up leading me to get more club work and being
Oh
seen and
yeah,
everything.
I can see
So
that. Yeah, that's great. So let's jump up to getting the Bob and Tom job. How did you get that writing job?
um well, I'm good friends with Tom's son, uh,
Oh,
which
what's his name?
Sam, Sam,
Okay,
not the other one, but
not the other one.
yeah, not Willie. Uh, Willie gets to be on air all the time,
Yeah.
but they love him. So Sam was a good friend of mine, and they let me in like to start writing for their stories. Just they give you headlines and just writing jokes. So I was just doing that pro bono to see like, hey, here's what I can provide. Do you guys like this? And Tom and them were going, okay, this guy's got good stuff, and they
Uh,
hired me on, and it's been. I got again. It's you get your connections the way you get your connections and everything, and you kind of play off of that.
mhm.
So there wasn't like a hey, like a really formal procedure as much as it was like work for free for a little bit. We'll see if we like it. If not, we'll move on, kind of thing.
Mm.
So, but luckily, it worked out pretty well.
So you're the third writer for Bob and Tom I've talked to, and the last one was Dwight Simmons.
Yeah,
And
he just got hired on like last year.
yeah, and so I asked him a question: how do you feel when you hear one of your bits on air? So I'll ask you that question. I'll tell you how he answered.
I think he's going to answer the same way. The same way I'm going to answer it is I don't listen.
Yeah. Okay. You got it.
It's too early in the morning. I can't. What am I going to do?
That's it. That's funny because Dwight said the same thing. He says he carves out his mornings for no humor, no comedy, and he does other stuff. And
Yeah, I see him carve out his whole days and nights too.
yeah,
I'm just making
I
fun of him because he beat me in the fantasy football championship for the second year in a row, and I'm still pissed about it.
yeah. Oh man, that's funny. And it's I don't listen to the show anymore either. My wife still does when she can, but in the '80s, I live by that show, and I mean they were nuts. It was basically just
Yeah,
Bob and Tom at that point. Christy Lee wasn't there, and none of the whole crew was there. It was Bob and Tom, and they had Bob Zaney was on all the time and stuff like that. But it was just them, and they did just all kinds of crazy stuff. Actually, a little bit more over the line than what they do now
Yeah.
because they could get away with it. But yeah, it was neat, and it kind of influenced me on doing comedy myself. And but yeah, it's funny when I talk to the writers. They're like, "Yeah, we write the stuff. We don't listen. It's okay."
But I will say this, like I'm, it's amazing how long they've been around,
Yeah,
and the fact that Bob's gone and Josh Arnold replaced him. I feel like Josh has been a perfect fit for that show, and it's still doing pretty well. And I
yeah,
remember I was talking to Sam, and he was telling me that they were second in the nation in ratings, next to Howard Stern.
yeah,
That's crazy. Like
yeah,
that's like that's such a big show, and some
yeah,
people in the big cities have never even heard of it. And you're like, this show is huge. Like,
yeah, yeah. And it's funny because I used to listen to Opie and Anthony, when they
yeah.
were going, and they used to diss Bob and Tom all the time, but they were always behind them in the ratings too.
So I mean, it's like me making fun of Dwight here. I'm behind him in the fantasy football championships. They're behind
Yeah.
in the ratings. I get it. Did you ever
Um,
listen to the Phil Henry show in
yeah, I've
Chicago?
listened to that. Yeah.
Yeah, not a lot of people know that show, and that's I think that is the best radio show ever put together.
I
It just
mean,
it's so amazing.
I just wonder, if, you know, obviously he's in character the whole time. And if you're in character for that long, because that show's like 3 hours long, isn't it?
Yeah, no, he's a bit of a maniac.
Yeah. So, yeah. So it's not
Yeah,
all put on, but yeah, I've listened to it. It's nutty.
yeah. It's so I for people who don't know, it's a show. Basically, it's the Phil Henry show, and he interviews a guest, and the guest is usually like outrageous and is saying some crazy thing. One instance is a guy was a pilot, and he flies in front of the planes, and he puts his hand out the window to let them know when it's good to land.
Yeah.
And he starts talking about that. And people will call in and say, I am a pilot. That's never how anybody does that. What are you
Uh,
talking about? And then they would have a huge argument on the radio, and Phil Henry would try to mediate it. But Phil
uh,
Henry is the other guy.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he's both people.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've listened, but I always thought it was pretty funny. So let's talk about putting the album together. Obviously, you must have recorded before lockdown happened.
Yeah, I
And
recorded about it. It'll be about exactly a year before the release.
okay. And when
So
did
January
you?
25th.
So when did you record, or where did you record it?
Houston, Texas, where I started, because I
Oh,
just have
okay, cool.
a large
Yeah.
group of friends and family there. So it's kind of nice to go back and record there at the Secret Group, which was
Hmm.
a newer comedy club that got put up. It does a lot of one-nighters,
Uh,
and it's really just kind of like the hip, cool, independent venue. So it's kind of nice to see. I started, my buddy started an independent show so long ago. This is like the independent venue now from years later, with Stephen Brandow, Andrew Youngblood. It's their venue they put together, and recording there. And I think it's the first album to release that was recorded at the Secret Group.
oh, cool.
And yeah, I did 2 shows, both sold out, and had a great time. It was really, you put a lot of like fear and anxiety before you do any big project.
Hmm.
You only get to do so many things in your life, and then it just ended up being a perfect day,
So
perfect night.
what leads you to doing the album? So you've been working for, at that point you'd been working for almost 9 years, because you're at almost 10 years now, and
Mhm.
you've been working and doing the club scene and doing all that. What leads you to want to make an album, first of all?
About 7 years in, I wrote like a Facebook post about how I knew a few people that have been doing it for 7 years, and they have like 2 albums.
Hmm.
And it was just more like me going, I don't understand. I feel like I'm not even close to doing that. I want to do it, but
Hmm.
nothing's going to be perfect, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to say it's perfect. Do I wait till somebody asks me to do it? Do I do like just kind of all my thoughts and questions? And I had a few people that are really close. They reached out, like, if you're going to do it, like it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
That's kind of like none of it really matters. So if you want to do it, do it. Then you have this cool little thing.
Mm,
And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. So I started focusing on that. I got in the Limestone Comedy Festival where I met Ross Duncliffe on tour, and he knew from Matt Holt that I wanted to make an album. He saw my set, and he goes, "Yeah, let's do one. I think you'd be
mm,
great." So, and working from there, I ended up booking the venue and getting the sound guy and everything, and it turned out perfect. I think, for me, it turned out
right.
like it's flawed. Everything is flawed. I have a few flaws,
Yeah.
but like I feel like this after finishing the editing and listening, it's like okay, this is who I am. It's a weird album, but it's what I want. So
Uh-huh.
perfect.
And do you obviously this is a culmination of your best stuff for 7+ years. Do you feel like that stuff has to go away now that this album's coming out?
It's like I'm nervous about that idea that you're burning material,
Mm,
but at the end of the day, it shouldn't. The material isn't what makes you.
mm,
You should be writing new material. You should be focusing on the next step and and that is something that's always. I feel like when I first started, I was writing new stuff all the time because I wanted to get somewhere. And like, if this wasn't working, then I got to do this. But
mm,
now I have stuff that's working, and now it's like, well, I still got to keep pushing forward.
mm,
Otherwise, I'll just plateau, and that's not what I really ever want to do. So,
right.
um, so the answer, like, long story short, if I'm doing a rural town, I'll do the jokes on the album.
Yeah.
But outside that, I'm starting focusing on keep writing what the next hour is going to be or the next 30 minutes.
Right.
And
Because
doing
they
that.
ain't
So
heard it yet.
they have not heard me talk out of my mouth.
Yeah. So let's talk about your style and how you got there. I watched enough video online to know that you walk a weird line because you'll do the absurdist stuff and a little bit non sequitur character, and then you'll get into a little bit of real life, and then you'll go back and tie it all together. How did you get there? Did you start there and just refine it, or did you start somewhere else, like with one liners, and then this just came to you?
So I started with one-liners a lot, and that was kind of mainly what I was just doing. It was one-liners, and I would bring up liner notes was my whole thing because I had to bring up notes because I kept forgetting what I was going to say.
Uh,
So I brought up my notes, and I realized you weren't supposed to do that. And I was like, "Oh, you got to make a joke about the notes."
yeah.
So I go, "Hey, everybody got liner notes on stage. This is to help me out." And then I would do a one-liner, and I go, "It's you won't even notice I'm looking at them." And then I would point at the paper and go, "Okay, wait for applause," and then just stare at the crowd, and then do a one-liner, and then go, "Everybody loves improv," and do like some stupid little bit with that. But
Uh,
I was like, okay, well, I like that. Like, I like the weird joke the most
uh,
of what I'm doing.
yeah.
Um, and then it just kind of, and then for a while, I was like, I tried to be the comic I thought people wanted to see. I was
Mm,
like, this is a comic that will book people. People will book because I'm just doing. Here's my 5 minutes on relationships, and it's like I hated doing it. I
yeah.
got a little bit of stuff, but nothing really of any substance. And then I was like, Joe, you are a spaz, like a maniac. So why don't you just start being a maniac?
Uh,
Because I don't write like segues or any of that stuff. So I just start talking fast, and the key I found in the last like 3 or 4 years is physical movement determines how I can be a stand-up.
yeah.
I don't want to say I'm a physical like I rely on just physicality for a lot of everything. But if I'm moving a weird way, then I can just change subjects and people accept it because he's moving weird. He must be weird.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they allow that whole thing to change, and I can kind of leave a joke and go back in it. And because of my physicality and how I'm carrying myself, no one's very surprised at it.
Yeah.
Whereas I think it allows me to be versatile and diverse with the jokes that I tell because I'm in the semblance of somebody who doesn't really have it together.
Uh, yeah. It I really get that, and the physicality part when you do the power move thing, and this you may have only done it that one time, but when you do that, turning away from the audience, you turn your back to the audience, and you're kind of lifting the microphone cord up, and then you just leisurely come around like you just don't care that they're there, and you do that. It really punctuates the joke. And the first time I watched it, I'm like, why is he doing that? This looks like a open mic guy that doesn't know how to grab the mic. And then I watched it again, and I'm like, oh, this is all part of it. So is that
Yeah. Oh, I think I froze. Or you froze. Are you there? Hello? All right, we're
okay?
back. Gotcha. Sorry about that.
I think that might have been me.
Thank God.
I feel like my internet just blipped on me.
Oh, that'll happen.
But yeah, so is that little turn, is that thing, is that part of it, or did that just happen?
So a lot of physicality stuff I'll do it's rehearsed to seem like it's not rehearsed,
Uh-huh.
but it's only being on stage where I can actually rehearse it. Um, but yeah, like the character, everyone is lucky to see the power move guy.
Hmm.
They're lucky, not me.
Yeah. Yep.
And so if I just do whatever I want on stage, especially like not even looking at the audience, and they start questioning who this guy is,
Hmm.
and it makes them pay attention more. I did an open mic in California once, and the crowd was just horrible.
Hmm.
It was so bad, and I liked this open mic because there were like two techniques I used to get everyone to pay attention, and one was I just didn't look in the audience.
Uh-huh.
I just stared. I didn't look at them and did my stand up like they weren't there, and people
Uh-huh.
would start to quiet down. And the other one, which I don't know how to evolve into my actual set, is I opened my set by just weeping for a minute, just openly weeping into the microphone. And the crowd no one, none of the comics get the crowd to shut up, and the crowd shut up because there was
Uh-huh.
just a man openly weeping into the microphone. And then when they shut up, I go, "Does anyone here smoke weed?" And this guy goes, "Yeah." They go, "Arrest that man." Then they just stopped paying attention and they went back to talking. But for a moment, I was able to capture their attention. I feel like
Yeah.
that. I had a buddy tell me, he's like, "Look, something that's going to help you in stand up." I didn't realize it at the time. Was He's like, "Go up and do your set and don't try to be funny. Just try to get the audience to pay attention to you the whole time
Uh-huh.
and figure out why that's happening." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, okay." And I started seeing what's going on and everything. I was like, that makes a lot of sense because then
Yeah.
you can be funny, and if they're paying attention, they'll be even more funny and all that. Yeah,
Right. I've heard that. I've heard comics that say, and I'd like to try this sometime, that when they're bombing and they know that they're just going to continue to bomb, they totally lean into it, and whatever material's bombing, they go into it hard, and but they overdo it so that, hey, if you're not going to laugh, at least you're going to remember me. And
yeah,
that's a pretty good philosophy to have, I think.
yeah. The only issue is if you're bombing and you're already have been exaggerating, then you don't know where to go.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
already went there, so I'll just say good night, everybody, and then
yeah.
not get paid.
So talking about the logistics of putting an album together, you got to record it, and you've got 2 nights worth, and you have to decide, which night is the best on each joke and stuff like that. What kind of time commitment is that for you to make those decisions and get it all put together?
So you're asking how do I structure the hour-long set together?
What did you have to do to get that so that you could say, okay, I got an album here?
So this is where the engineering comes in. So I put an Excel sheet together, and
Uh,
then I have all my recordings, and I put, okay, let me put all my jokes down, and let me put how long each joke is next to it, and
hmm,
then I'm gonna put these bits together, and see, okay, hey, this goes with this, all this stuff. Like I
Mm.
do 10 to 15 minutes on like driving jokes that are actually were 4 or 5 separate jokes that I was like, oh, these all kind of tie together. Why have I not been doing that in the first place?
Uh,
So having it down on like paper that I can see helps me kind of build those bits together even before the album, and then with the album, like, okay, well, these jokes would make more sense before here because these jokes are going to hit harder, and those jokes would do worse if they are following those jokes, and
mm.
just kind of you're still. It's a weird thing because even when you're doing a longer set, you also want to have like a lull, a little bit of a lull.
Yeah.
Unless you're just gonna boom, 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 boom. I
Yeah.
can't I can't do that. Some of my jokes have longer setups than I'd rather have, but
Mm.
um, it's mainly like, okay, I know I'm ending here. This is usually a pretty good start to establish what I'm doing, and then let's see how we go in the middle here. And then I was able to build like, okay, this is 20 minutes. This is like 20 to 25 minutes. And now that I have these two giant chunks, how do I make everything else work
Mm.
around that?
Right. When it's funny when you talk about a lull and not going so fast. I'm first off, even when I was younger, I'm kind of ADD, and I can't pay attention to stuff if somebody's going too fast. So
Yeah.
when a comic is just blasting me, I laugh, but I'm missing probably 2/3 of what they say because I'm just concentrating on the laughter on the first joke. And I really like it when there's a little bit of time to catch up and actually listen.
So you basically for you listening to stand up is like on a square television watching widescreen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's easier because I can pause it and rewind. But I watch a lot of live stuff too. But it's
Yeah. But yeah.
when when they machine gun those jokes, I miss a lot, and I'm deaf too. So not stone deaf, but I wear hearing aids, and I miss a lot of stuff that's just on frequencies too. So
Mhm.
that makes it double hard. So yeah, it's interesting. I gravitate towards like comedians who um, don't don't do the rapid fire one liners. I've been watching a lot of uh, English comedy from across the pond, and a lot of them
Yeah.
still do the rapid fire one liners. And then I watch Jim Jeffries, and he's totally different. He's more of a storyteller and goes a little bit slower. And I check out on the ones that do the rapid fire. I just can't do it.
Yeah.
And
I,
it's
I would check out I would check out Stuart Lee if that's what you like over there.
okay.
He's from the UK. He's probably one of the most brilliant comics out there. Like Norm Macdonald and Stuart Lee are on like kind of the same
Oh,
level of
okay.
like not the same style, but just same level. Like this is such a smart person doing
Yeah,
jokes.
yeah. So let's talk about you performed in a lot of different areas, and obviously you saw other comics when you're coming up and stuff like that. Did you get any mentors? Did anybody just say, "Hey, Joe, I want to help you out," or did you just do it all on your own?
um, I feel like I was on my own for a long time.
Uh-huh.
Um, I had a really good friend when I had a couple of really good friends. The one I started the show with, and another guy we kept in touch for a long time. Where you're just like, okay, we're all starting together. We're in the same thing. We kind of like the same style of comedy. Let's work together. I moved to the Bay Area, and not to say I got into the wrong crowd, but I just got in with the wrong group of comics in the sense they're like, oh, they'll come to us. We don't have to go to them.
Uh-huh.
And then that really did not help me because I wasn't pushing that hard because I was like, okay, well, that's what my friends are doing. That's what I'll do as well. And I didn't realize why because they didn't have the same kind of drive of what they wanted to do with it as
Yeah.
me. And I just let myself get in my own head. Chicago was a little bit, I wasn't there long enough to really do anything. When I got here, it really was like Brent Terhune, who
Yeah.
was working the open mic at Crackers, was like, hey, I can, because I was going there for like a year and a half, doing kind of the same bits, but doing very well. And he's like, "Look, you've been doing very well. Let's figure out how to get you work and everything."
Uh-huh.
So he helped that a lot, which then led to my first weekend at Crackers. And I worked with Matt Holt, who was featuring, and
Okay.
a headliner who was horrible.
Yeah.
Uh, but Matt Holt and me ended up he ended up really getting me a lot of gigs in the Midwest, and he without him, there's a lot of shows I wouldn't have been able to do, and
Uh,
without him, I don't think I would have gotten the album with On Tour Records and everything.
mm.
So in a way, don't ever tell him I said this, but Matt Holt is the closest thing I've had to a mentor.
Oh, great.
But mainly, I was just there to make him look good.
Yeah.
He told me to bomb every show. But no, it wasn't until then where I was like, he was the guy reach out the funny business and just kind of these little things that I didn't know, because
Mhm.
there's not like a guide,
No. Yeah.
like there's not like like I don't know, my day job, you have a website you go to, like here are the open positions and
Yeah.
here's what you need to do and this is what we're looking for and everything. But outside that, I'm just kind of flying by the seat of my pants, guessing the whole time.
Yeah. And comics in general, in most areas, don't really, it's such a competitive thing that they don't really tell you. And
Hmm.
they it's okay that you fall on your face. But Indianapolis, everything I've heard about Indy, because Brent was on the show too, is a pretty, it's a pretty good crowd and everybody's pretty supportive of each other, which is not the case everywhere.
No, yeah, I mean it is. I've been in 3 scenes, quasi a fourth scene, and it just really is different.
Mm,
Each scene is different. I think Houston was a really great scene for me to get involved in. It's probably one of the more cliquish scenes. It's
mm,
done a lot better now, but at the time it was very like, here are these 3 or 4 groups, and you're in one of them,
yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah.
Which was fine, but it
Mm,
wasn't. I want to be friends with everybody because I'm desperate for attention. So and the Bay Area was very separated geographically. You're in Oakland, you're in the Oakland group, you're the San Francisco group, you're the
yeah.
Southern South San Francisco, San Jose, all Santa Cruz, and all that stuff. And then Indianapolis, it's just a smaller scene, so we
Mm,
all kind of have to get along with each other.
yeah.
And I mean, don't we still have like our assholes, like every like every
Oh yeah.
place, but um, we're slowly figuring it out. I wish, and it kind of, this is the longest I've been in one scene, almost 5 years now, and it's been fluctuating between, hey, we've got all this cool stuff. Oh man, we don't really have anything. Hey, a lot of cool independent shows. We don't really have anything. Hey,
Yeah.
we've got like 4.5 clubs right now. This is cool, and now
Yeah.
we've got 2. Or I guess
Yeah.
we got 3. Gutties is down south,
Yeah.
so which is nice.
Yeah. Cool.
But yeah.
So thinking about the advice you've got, I like to ask this to everybody. What would you say is the best and worst piece of advice that you got during your career?
The best advice I've ever heard, and some people don't like this, but I always appreciate it because I think it allows you to be but weird, but not horrible.
Uh,
Is write what you think is funny, but keep what the audience tells you is funny.
okay.
So you're always writing for yourself, but you're trying to make it funny at
Yeah.
the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to have that personality where like, well, it's the audience that doesn't get it, so I'm going to do this the same way 50 more times until they figure it out. Instead of
Uh,
like, why is this? What can I do to change what's happening and make it
yeah.
better? That's the best advice. I think it's ever helped me. And the worst advice is I don't know. I mean, I've just been told so many shitty things. It's such a tough one to pick from. One per, I would say the worst advice I got was actually from somebody who was being nice. Is the liner notes that I mentioned earlier?
Mhm.
Someone told me that they go, you would that's very funny, but no club will ever book you if you do that. And
That's
so I
not
was like,
true.
oh, yeah, well, I was still
Yeah.
new. And I was
Yeah.
like, I was told that. And he was kind of a weird comic.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I guess I won't be that weird then. I want to be palatable. And then I went to California, me going, this is what a comic should be and everything. Because I'm
Yeah.
anything but malleable to other people's intentions.
Yeah.
But
I'm always
it's, yeah.
I'm
Sorry,
always
what?
stoked when a headliner comes out and they've got their notebook with them because I know it's new stuff. And as a comic, you get to study that. And I've seen Stuart Huff, I don't know how many times, and almost every time it's been he brings a notebook out and he's working something out. And
Yeah.
that's great because I mean some of it's not ready, but getting to hear it first is really cool.
He's brilliant. He's unbelievably brilliant.
Yeah.
That guy is just, he writes a whole, he wrote the Limestone Festival I was at. He went there with a brand new hour he wrote in like 4 or 5 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's still like some of the best stuff I'm going to hear. Like,
Oh yeah.
it's
Yeah, he's
just
great.
crazy.
Yeah, he's super great. Another one I like to ask everybody is what three things do you know now that you wish you would have known when you started?
It's a good question. What three things? One, all my good jokes. Uh, Man, if I knew those when I started, I'd be so much better now because
Yeah.
everyone would like me. Um, Two is that like it's very little of everything I do on stage and the shows and all that stuff. Very little of it matters.
Mhm.
Like I had so much stuff that it mattered so much. If I didn't do well, no one would ever want me on their shows or anything.
Yeah.
That's a big one. It's just
Mhm.
like this really doesn't matter. You just
Yeah.
have fun, you know. And I would actually do better if I knew it didn't matter, kind
Yep.
of thing.
Yeah.
And don't drink and drive. The third one. It's you don't have to do that. So
Uh,
that would be very helpful. That would have
yeah.
saved me $10,000. Uh,
Yikes. See, when I used
California
when
stuff.
I used to drink and drive, nobody ever arrested you, so it was a different thing. So
I would have got away with it if I didn't. I got in an accident. I was trying to exchange information, and man, I should have just went home.
yeah. Yep, that's normally the story. So one last thing I wanted to ask you, your humor is because it's kind of out there. Do you have any jokes that you think are just super funny that you could never get an audience to respond to?
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's a lot there. I said there's one. I'll say this one because it's a short joke. But before that, I will say there was like a bit I would do at showcases or open mics for a little bit, where I'd go on stage and I would be like, "Look, I've already done. I've had a really rough day, so I'm not really ready to perform. So
Uh,
I'm just gonna play an earlier set from today, if that's okay." And then I would put my phone up to the microphone, and it would just be the comics before me set
uh,
that I recorded just to play for them. And so I would just sit there for like a minute with them, the jokes they just heard, listening to it again. And then and then at the end it ended up I do a recording again, but it's about a guy caught in a bear trap.
uh,
It's a long con. It never worked. I
yeah,
thought it was very funny and interesting, but it never worked.
yeah,
And the one time it did, somebody was like, "That was interesting. I have no idea what you were doing, but I liked it." And I was like,
yeah.
"Yeah, that's what I'm going for." Uh, but a joke I really enjoyed, that just never got over on stage was I would say like, I always want to sound smart to my friends.
Yeah.
So they'll be like, "Hey, I'm feeling pretty good." I'm like, "You're feeling pretty well, you know?"
Uh-huh.
And they're like, and then they're like, "I just bought Goodyear tires." I'm like, "You just bought well-year tires, all right?" And they're like, "Timmy fell down a good." I'm like, "Well, actually, uh, but it never did well on stage. I just
Yeah.
don't know. I was like, I think this is a well written joke, good written joke,
Uh,
and but it just never trained. I don't know, never translated to being on stage.
I like it. I,
Yeah, I mean, it's a good joke.
I'm sure
Maybe
I
one of
would
the best
laugh.
ever written. As long as they don't say it too fast.
Yeah. 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 If you did that really fast, I'd miss it. It's just, well, Tim, what is this? Yeah. So since we stayed live, I'm going to pop your website up real quick. It's
I should update that.
joebatescomedy.com. And where else can people find you as far as
Uh,
social media and stuff?
Twitter and Instagram at Joe Bates Comedy, both at Joe Bates Comedy. I should update my website. It's not as updated as I would like it to be. I should do that. The fact that you mentioned the Trial by Laughter finalist, I was like, that's regional Comcast on demand.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm on Sirius XM Radio. You can hear me there.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's been nice. That's real money from stand up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you like podcasts, can I plug a podcast? Is that
Yeah. No
okay?
doubt.
Oh, okay, cool. Me and my friends did a podcast called Entertainment Federation Wrestling, which
Okay.
is me and my two friends are announcing actual like fake wrestling matches. We built a
Mhm.
whole promotion and like WWE Raw, but this is our own version of it.
Uh-huh.
We voice all the wrestlers. We do a lot of voice acting. We've got a lot of post production. We have mat noises, so it sounds like there's actually wrestling happening
Uh-huh.
that we're talking about. It's very funny. We have a father son tag team, but the dad never shows up. Uh, but it's something it's 9 episodes. The first season's all up on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. If you like wrestling at all or just very funny, like weird little podcast episodes, I would
Mhm.
recommend it. I'm one of the things I'm most proud of ever making. So I
Yeah.
always am pushing it.
That's cool. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. And you are going to be on the BTB Internet Talk Show on Thursday, and your
Mhm.
buddy Gabe's going to be on that show. So
Hell
that's
yeah.
going to be a good one. And I've got a couple other good people. I don't remember who they are. Oh, Dwayne White from DC and Erica Switzer. I think she is Chicago. So
Cool,
yeah,
cool,
so that's going
cool.
to be and the album comes out on January
January
22nd,
22nd.
and your
Yep.
pre-sale is Friday. Let's
Mhm.
put that cover back up there since we're still alive. Joe Bates, Joe Bates, Joe Bates by Joe Bates.
I love that
I
album
like
cover, man. I
that,
love
that
it.
I like that cover. It's so 70s. I mean,
Yeah.
it's disco, man, and I like it.
Yeah. That's my comedy. It's disco, baby.
Yeah.
You only like Avery on Coke.
Well, I tell you what, it's been fun talking to you, and I wish you the best. And I can't wait to get you on the talk show Thursday. I actually pretend like I have personality on that, so it'll be a lot of fun.
Perfect. I thought you did all right. But thank you so much for having me on the show, Scott. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. This has been great. I'm going to go ahead and go offline